Oh, 5 words or less. Fun, funny, heartfelt, picklebally. That's the terrible word. Cinematic. I had played a little bit of pickleball prior. I think it was probably right around the end of COVID that I got, enough friends that sort of asked me and said, "Oh, you got to play pickleball. You got to try this out." It had been growing in popularity, and so finally I caved and I bought my cheap $10 paddles on Amazon, and my wife and I went to a local court, and we kind of immediately fell in love. It was like we met all these strange new characters from all walks of life, all ages. Our first match, I think we immediately lost and got our butts kicked by a couple of 60-year-olds, which humbled us, which I think is probably true of anybody. And, we both fancy ourselves somewhat sporty. And so I think that drove us to be like, let's keep playing. Let's keep doing this. Ultimately got our kids involved, and we all play now. But yeah, so I was familiar with the sport. I liked playing. I liked that it was easier for me than tennis because I love tennis, but it's very, very difficult. Serving, I find very hard. Um, so there was an accessibility to the sport that I liked. And then, when the script came across my desk, it was really funny, which, Sean Clements wrote a very, very funny script. He's a very funny writer. And Jake Johnson, a good friend of mine and someone I've worked on several things together, had called me and said, "I think this is a great thing for us to work on together." And so I was immediately excited and intrigued. I hadn't made a sports comedy yet. So this movie and the script kind of felt like a classic sports comedy that we haven't seen in a little while, all but hiding inside this very current, very funny kind of cultural phenomenon that is pickleball. Um, and I think, underneath the comedy and the ridiculousness of it all, the movie was really about something, which is always really important to me. And, it obviously is about second chances and reinvention, about friendship. And I think about trying to find your identity and purpose at a moment in life when maybe you thought your big shot had passed you by, which is, of course, Dusty's story. So there was something real. It was a world that was inherently comic. It was exciting to make the very first pickleball movie for sure. And at the center of it were characters whose stakes were very, very real. I mean, a director couldn't ask for a better pairing than Jake Johnson and Mary Steenburgen. They're both individually so talented. They are so funny, but yet somehow so grounded. You can give them the most absurd things to have to do or say, and you believe them. They fully commit, but there's also this sort of vulnerability to both of them and an emotional side of them that feels really accessible and universal. And so individually, both of them are brilliant. And I had worked with Jake several times in the past, and every time I do, I'm like, how do we let's keep working together because I just love working with him. I had never gotten the chance to work with Mary, but have loved her forever. So I was so overjoyed when she signed on and said yes. And little did I know she's obsessed with pickleball and plays it all the time. But then combining the two of these brilliant performers together, you never know as a director. You hope they have chemistry. You hope that they work well together. You hope that they get along off set, so you're not dealing with that. And I've never seen two people kind of come together and gel so quickly, both on screen and off screen. The movie behind the scenes, we formed this family, and we still are all on the same text chain and all talking and texting all the time. But on screen, it was just such a joy to watch because they really also created this beautiful bond that I think you believe, despite their maybe 30-year age difference. I totally believe them becoming really close and really good friends. And so, yeah, it was just a joy to work with both of them, and they really do have just incredible chemistry in the film. Yeah, I mean, I think in casting Jake's dad, we somehow landed the incredible, you know, Ed Harris, which I still don't really know how I got him in our movie or we got him to play in the movie, but He's just an incredible actor with such gravitas. And so to take an actor like him, who's really obviously only known in his dramatic work, and to kind of lure him into our comedy world, and then sort of say to him, though, which he knew inherently, all you have to do, Ed, is play it straight. If you deliver this speech about how you hate the world of pickleball and see it as a cancer on society with the same intensity and gravitas that you gave your like Apollo 13 speech with, it will be very funny. And he knew that right away, and he crushed it. He delivered it, and it was incredible to get to work with him and watch him work. And his scenes between him and Jake Johnson are so funny, and they're so great. They have such an incredible father-son dynamic. And then, a huge, I think, breakout star in our cast is the incredible Aaron Chen. He's a comedian that I've kept an eye on for years. A friend of mine who's from Australia told me about him years ago. Jake and I have both been huge fans of Aaron. And when we read the script originally from Sean, we were trying to figure out who's perfect for PJ. And we read some people who were great, but not quite it. They were missing that kind of it factor of something specific and unique. And then we had the idea of Aaron Chen, and he's just so funny. He's so absurd at times, but you believe him. He's so dry and so deadpan, and his chemistry with Jake is incredible. So just absolutely love Aaron. And then, I mean, we got Andy Roddick. I couldn't believe we got Andy Roddick to play himself in the film. That was much thanks to our producer, Ben Stiller. Ben had the idea. Originally, it was Andy Roddick in the script, but we're like, maybe we'll have to probably cast an actor to play it. He said, why don't we just go after Andy himself, despite him never having acted? And, I think I was like, well, how do we get a hold of Andy? He doesn't have like an acting agent. And Ben was like, I'm sure I can reach out. Ben's very tapped into the tennis world. You see him every year at Wimbledon. And so Ben connected me with Andy Roddick. We had a great interview. And, I said to him, look, Andy, I'm going to do everything in my power to surround you with great actors, and we'll rehearse, we'll go over the lines. I want you to feel as comfortable as you possibly can on set. And he said, Josh, I never felt comfortable once on the tennis court, so I don't know how I'm going to feel comfortable acting. Which just gives you a window into, like, he's a very, Andy's a very funny guy inherently. He's very dry. And he was great. He did an incredible job. But yeah, then we had Chloe Feynman and Patton Oswalt and Lynn Marie Stewart, and just the list goes on. And I felt incredibly lucky to have put together such an incredible cast of comedians and actors and the like. So it really all came together and was a director's dream come true. That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I hope that audiences, of course, laugh and have a great time, because that's ultimately why we made the film, is to give you a really fun ride for an hour and a half. But I also hope that, you kind of come away realizing, that there's maybe, something to be gained from taking a risk and trying something that you never thought you should or would. I mean, Dusty's story is, he's an ex-tennis player who thinks pickleball is a joke and would never be caught dead playing pickleball. And he's kind of stuck in the past about the story. And it's not until he lets go of that identity and he says, okay, I'm willing to try this new thing, as dumb as it may sound, in pickleball. And when he does, he meets a new cast of characters. He meets Mary Steenburgen, but he also meets a new version of himself. And I think that's what happens when you push yourself out of your comfort zone. You discover a new version of yourself. And I hope that, audiences take that away of, like, don't sort of judge a book by its cover, and try new things. And yeah, certainly try pickleball if it interests you. But I didn't necessarily make the film as a sales pitch for pickleball, although I do think it's a great way to, it's a great date. If you need something to do on a date, it's certainly good exercise. But it is also, if you're thinking it sounds dumb or it sounds like a joke of a sport, I would challenge you to try it out, because I think you'll discover it's quite fun, and you might just discover a new side of yourself when you play it. So that's what I hope people take from the Dink.